Hello, everyone, and welcome to SheRunsOnAI. SheRunsOnAI was created because we believe, Leo and I believe, that the most powerful way to help women embrace AI is through each other's stories. Not the hype, not the theory, but real women in real roles sharing what is actually working in their lives. We exist for the woman who is already high performing, already stretched thin, and already using AI in some way, but knows there's something more intentional possible. Our goal is not to help women do more or move faster. It is really to help women build a personal AI system that is designed around how they actually work, how they live. So we can spend more time on what matters the most for us in this stage of life. So every conversation on this channel is part of that mission. And today's guest is someone I had the privilege of working with at Mercer until a few months ago, who is doing some of the most forward thinking work on how AI is transforming HR from the inside out. So, Emily, welcome. I'm so happy to have this conversation with you.
Thank you so much, Adriana, and your mission. Wow. I feel so honored to be here today and get the chance to catch up and also talk about something that I think both of us are deeply passionate about.
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation. So, I mean, we work together at Mercer, but for the people who don't know you yet, tell us more about who you are and what are you focused on right now?
Okay. Well, I guess so maybe randomly, I started my career in politics and not because I ever wanted to
Wait, I feel like I didn't know that. I feel like this is new
really.
information.
Okay, well, not because I wanted to run for office. That was actually not the thing, and, like, awkwardly, probably for my parents, at a very young age, I was, like, genuinely troubled by how passive people were about something that was, like, shaping every part of their lives. Like, people weren't voting and people were, disengaged, they didn't understand, and it was, like, that system of, like, who got elected and how policies were getting made and, it was just so shocking to me that people didn't understand it, they didn't participate, and they didn't feel like they, like, had agency, to even be engaged. And it seemed so obvious to me, and I wanted to change it. Like, I was like, "Oh my gosh." So at a very young age, even before I entered high school, I was this was my focus. And I even like started Rock the Vote at my university. I mean, I was like, this was my track. And then I moved to Washington, D.C. and did that whole thing. And over time, I realized that crazy enough that even though that our politics and like the engagement civically is so important, that technology was even a bigger version of the problem, right? Like, that to me just is, it's like a system that people don't understand. It makes decisions that affect our lives. It's transforming work, like literally our livelihoods without our participation and engagement. And I feel like, again, people felt like they had no real influence and all of those things were happening again. And so I had made a shift, from politics into, consulting and more in that technology, HR, obviously, because that's where the people function, really sat. And that's the space I've been in for the last 20 years. And I worked, a lot on tech implementation. So really understanding how like the tech worked. And then, and that was all in the age of the cloud and SaaS solutions. And people are like, what's the cloud? Like those were the questions that when I really was, transitioning into that tech focus was a big part of, what I was doing. And then, I had the amazing opportunity to work across opening practices, opening markets in Europe and in the Pacific. And I really have been focused a lot on launching, new products and new offerings. You were, mentioning a lot of that forward thinking. And that's been really where a lot of my work has been over the last 20 years. And I guess my last hurrah was with you in Mercer. And I was leading, our global center of excellence focused on HR digital transformation and had amazing opportunities to really create there. But I guess like all of it to kind of like when I had that chance to reflect on how does all this, like, what's the through line? How does all this fit together? I think in my head, like, really helping people navigate systems that are changing faster than we're ready for and have a real disproportionate impact on our lives. I think that like when I kind of look at everything that I've ever been focused on, it really kind of centers around that. And then here comes AI. And it's like the biggest version that I've ever seen. And I believe I'll ever probably will ever see, right? Of this kind of impact. So I feel like that kind of hopefully sums up my background a bit and threads the needle between all those pieces. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, thank you for that. And you did it for me, connecting all of those dots. And by the way, when you were sharing how your career started and politics and your interest there, I'm like, of course, it makes sense. That's exactly how Emily's brain operates. Now I know that after working with you for a bit. So
That
I
little
mean, I
12-year-old that was like to my parents, like, why are they not voting? Like I want to solve this problem. Yes, still
yeah,
living it today.
no, but this is exactly, in my opinion, what we need now with AI, right? People who are thinking of the whole system, of not isolated use cases, and that, and you and I talk a lot about HR and transformation, but we really, for us to get there, we really need systems thinking. And that's exactly what you do naturally. So I feel like we could take this conversation in many different directions for our audience. And it's this channel is designed to help women create those systems. I'm very curious to learn from you how you've clearly been in the space of change and HR transformation. We said naturally you've been helping organizations, consulting with them on how can they think about preparing for that change, the mindset, all of that. But when was the shift for you to use AI personally? Because I see a lot of, and I would love your opinion here, but I hear a lot of people talking about AI who are actually not using AI personally, which I find so interesting.
Yeah. For
I'm like, I don't know how that's possible. It's like telling people how to use a computer and not using one yourself. So
sure.
I would love to hear how was that journey for you, and yeah, where are you with using AI personally?
Cool. I love that. Yeah. So I guess like when I think of like with most people, when I like date my AI journey, I think about, November 2022, Chat GPT was released to the public. And I think probably then I was using it like most people did. I was doing better research, faster drafts of things. I was using it for shortcuts, essentially. But I think the real shift for me has happened probably in the last maybe over 6 months, but in the last year for sure. And was not about getting faster tasks, but it was realizing that this could be embedded in every part of my life. Like literally, not just in work, but every part of my life. Like I use it to come up with recipes, right? I use it to truly find like the best gifts for people that I care about, right? And I use it to figure out what to do on the weekends, or I plan a house project, or how to manage my finances. Or when my dog right now has like a really weird cough, and, I'm, using it to understand those things. So, like, shows up in like the smallest moments, but also like the biggest ones too for me. And like where I think about like the biggest ones, it's like in my relationships, right? So it's like not just preparing for hard conversations, you hear that a lot, but like it actually helps me understand the people I love better. Right. I feel like because I use it to talk through the situations I'm in, it kind of helps me think through how I want to show up as a partner, and what kind of relationship I want and what I actually want to build, and like what the gap is that I need to like close to get to those intentions, my intentions, and turning them into actions. Right. Like that is where I feel like I've moved from actually being more emotionally aware, more thoughtful, like more intentional, like about like the things that matter to me most. And I guess it's like, what surprised me is that it doesn't like just do things faster, that it actually teaches me, right? Like I come to conversations knowing more than I would in the past, and that knowledge compounds, right? And it makes me better at my job. It makes me better, again, like as a partner, makes me a better friend, it makes me a better dog mom, all those things. This I feel like is a little bold to say, but I actually think it makes me a better person. And I'm not even embarrassed to really say that. But I know that's pretty extreme, but I'm experiencing it. Like, I don't treat it like a tool that I pick up occasionally. And I've really started it to treat it kind of as a thinking partner that's always available. And that has been the biggest transformation for me personally and how I use it.
Yeah, that resonates with me a lot. And I would say I'm someone who's like in the middle, right? Like I recognize that this is a technology that can transform our lives. Definitely an optimist and see all of the opportunity. There are risks, right? That's why we need to use it with intention, right? But I think you're absolutely right that it is not just a tool here, isolated tool that we just pick up sometimes. If we really want to see the benefits, the potential, we really need to think about like how do we integrate it in every single step. So I agree with you. I find myself doing something very, very similar, where I don't think AI solves all of our problems, not at all. It's not the solution for everything, and it is a tool that it makes sense to use in certain occasions, and others it doesn't. But I do use it all the time, right? It is now a part of my routine. And what I've been doing is actually taking the time to redesign everything. And look, from a work perspective, we talk about changing how work gets done, workforce transformation, that, right? We're
Right.
also very close to that conversation. And I've been really going through that personally, saying if for school assignments for my kids, right? Like, what are the things that I care about, right? Like, what is my why, right? Like, I want to be a present mom. I want to make sure that my kids are getting the best education. I want to be prepared. I want to be right. So you need to get so clear on your why, and then you can
And
get
it
AI to
amplifies it.
help you to
Yes.
fill, because like we're not perfect. We can't do it all, right? And sometimes say we can't get advice from AI on certain things. I mean, in many areas, I'm not even taking action. So I'm already like the gap between the person who I want to be and how I want to show up is so big because I don't even have the time or the tools or anything to get the things that I to work on the things that I want. And AI is getting me closer to take action, right? I feel so much more empowered with so much more control and agency because now I'm actually able to do a lot of the things that I didn't think were possible before. So that's what gets me so excited. And I would love to hear a bit how you think about, data and like, sensitive information, because that's a reality. And I have to say that in the conversations that I have with women, which interestingly don't come as frequently in my conversations with men, are things that have to do with, yeah, with risk, with sustainability, right? Women actually care about not only using the technology. I truly think that, this is not, if women are not embracing AI, it's not because of skills, not because it's because actually they're thinking a lot, a lot more on the why.
Holistic.
Why are we even
Holistic.
doing this?
Yes.
And they're thinking more about the system. So I would love to get your perspective on.
I think everything you're saying is so true, and I think that's one of the biggest things that when, we talk about, like, some of the problems that we're solving or the things that why AI has become so important in what we do and how we show up and the way we think, and, like, the first one to me is, like, agency with the technology itself. That's that personal agency, individual agency. So to me, like you were saying, like, most people are afraid or AI of AI or they're blindly using it, right? And they're just delegating to it. And both of those give away your power. And I really believe that people who get the most out of AI are the ones that stay in that driver's seat, right? And they bring their own intelligence, that own thinking about the full system, the risk, the sustainability, the broader impact, that we're seeing, right? And use the technology to amplify what they already believe to be true and important, that why. And that's like you said, it's a mindset shift before anything else. And so, like, I really believe that, like, that delegating to it or being afraid of it are the things that we really have to help women and our broader world understand that it's bringing that integrity and yourself to the AI that is the most important from that individual perspective. So, I feel like shying away from it is definitely not what I would recommend. I think and I think women play such a critical role as, we're bringing the next round of generations up and we're setting those examples, right? And using that as the framework for what will be the pairing between humans and machines. It's the human bringing those components in. So that's at least my perspective. I'm definitely forward on AI. I believe, as we think about sustainability and what it's doing with the data centers and the water rights, and people are saying we should stop. I am also at the same time saying the way we get out of this is using the technology for the good, right? It solve these problems. We have not been able to solve a lot of the problems that have left us with the world that we are all very concerned about right now, environmentally and broader than that. And we now have the power with these tools to solve. And so I feel like that's where I want people to put their focus and you know,
Yeah, I love that. I think intentionality
so
is
good.
critical. And that's where, clarity is so important, right? That's kind of the first step. So if you the women out there who are might not be ready to fully embrace it, I think what we can be doing is go deeper on our whys. What is the life that we want to create? What is that you play as a mother, as a wife, as a professional, right? And having that clarity whenever you're ready to embrace it, then you will. I don't like a lot of this narrative of fear and you're going to be left behind. No, this is not about running someone else's race. Like, this is about running our own race wherever you want to go, right? Use this technology to your advantage to go wherever you want to go. So I by no means want this to be, just do it because everyone else is doing it, but rather because there's such a big opportunity for you to achieve what you want to achieve with this technology. So I
I
love
also
I love
think
that perspective.
talking about it, through that individual lens, I think is such an important starting point. And then we think about the broader organizations, right? And I think something that we were talking about broader HR transformations and things of that nature that have been where our careers have been, centered. And I also really want to solve that problem as well, because I believe that organizations have built, and you've heard me talk about this a lot, around constraints, right? Hierarchies and silos and approval chains and all these structures that we created, really, which I think is so unfortunate the more I think about it, to manage humans as risk and their bandwidth issues. Humans were risk, so we had to put boxes around them because we didn't want them to go outside of those boxes. And now AI doesn't live with those boundaries, which I think is so interesting. Somehow we've just switched that. The way we eliminate a human in the workspace looks so different than the way that we think about the technology. But like most companies are trying to like fit AI into those old constraints instead of like asking what structure could it look like without those constraints, right? What if we worked in a like an abundance framework, right? Where that's our model, not a constraint model, but an abundance model, which is what we actually have the ability to kind of focus on. And we've always operated in those limits and they've shaped everything. And I just think we haven't thought of what's possible. And the one example that like I've been, thinking about a lot, and I think as mothers and people with kiddos, they'll really resonate, is like thinking back to like your kiddos and their life was like before they entered school, maybe even like the imagination, the creativity, like their willingness to think outside of boundaries, right? And that's not a phase that they grow out of naturally or anything, right? That's something that's trained out of us. And it
Absolutely.
starts in school and then it really becomes apparent in work. And we literally tell people to set aside that and to focus, right? And I think AI gives us a chance to really reverse that. I am so focused on this is where I get so much energy is like when the technology handles all those constraints type of work, right? And we're left with the most human components. And that's our integrity and our creativity, all the things we were just talking about that are so important, our individuality. And I feel like when that's paired with this very powerful tech, that's where like the magic happens. And I really feel like it's so important that we kind of think about it like we're helping people reclaim their magic, right? And I feel like the one organization that limits the human and gives it powerful tech will look very different than an organization that tells the humans to embrace all that unique individuality and bring that in connection to the technology. I know which organization's going to thrive way better
Right.
when you think of it from that lens.
Absolutely. And this is what excites me from an enterprise perspective. We have such an incredible opportunity to redesign that system, right? As you were saying, it is also our reality that there's so much happening in our world. There's so many real challenges for organizations, our economy. Anyways, there's so many things that I think keep usually leaders distracted from this. But it's exciting to see organizations that are actually taking the steps. And this is not something that will happen in a few months, right? This is not, we can't transform organizations in a day or two. This is a process, a long-term one, right? And one that will continue to evolve and look different, right? So building that agility into the organization is so critical because this is not something where we make a design the future picture and
Right.
it stays the same for years. No, that will continue changing. And I know that you're so passionate
So
about this
much. Like,
area.
yeah, and I just have it's not an AI conversation we're actually when you really get down to it.
Yeah,
It is all a human conversation that really is at the impetus of the transformation. So it's really fun to be at that kind of center of it all.
absolutely, absolutely. Is there a hack that you can share with women of something that you're like, this has really I've given getting so much value from doing this with
Yeah,
AI? Anything?
the hack. So I guess the maybe like my number one hack is I kind of going back to what we've been discussing is I never use AI to think for me. I
Mm,
use it to think with me, right? And so I feel like that maybe and I never stop at the first response. And I think that's the way I kind of had this like epiphany was, it's not treating AI like a vending machine almost like one prompt in,
right.
a prompt in and an output, right? Boom, 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 boom. And what, like, you just get an average answer, really. And I think that's where people are like, oh, it's fine, right? Like, it kind of helps. But what I've identified is that's not my answer. And when I really stay with it and get my best thinking, it becomes my answer after work, and I think that's my hack is that I kind of come with my perspective already forming, right? Like most of the time, and my intelligence is the starting point. Like that's really, I think, an important thing for me. And then I use it to push further, to poke holes and to show me the angles that I haven't even like considered. And so I think that, the biggest thing for me is that, and I think about it, it's that it's really about starting with myself and using that as my amplification, right? And that's what like that's a word, abundance, amplification. I know these words seem whatever, but I feel like that's the era that we are and we have the ability to enter into, and it's not about speed or more, it's really about, like, the quality, and that's again, if we stay in the driver's seat, that and we don't hand the wheel off and, like, which is something I think you and I were just talking about earlier, and you'll get something generic, but it's when it's your voice, your intelligence, your perspective, that's the, like, input. AI is the most amazing amplifier of that. And so maybe that's,
That's
a
a
side.
great hack. I love that. I love that. It's you're having AI get the best of you.
Yes, that's exactly. I couldn't say it better. Yes.
Yeah. I love that. What a this is the way to end, I think, our conversation. Um, Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time, for sharing your advice. I can't wait to hear more about what you're doing in the next few months, and so you can share it with us, and maybe you can come back and we can have another conversation, and helping women really embrace it and help them create the system that works for them. So thank you so much. This is exactly the kind of conversation that we created this channel for. So, to all of our listeners, if this resonated with you, subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss our next conversation. You can also find us on LinkedIn and Instagram at SheRunsOnAI and visit our website to learn more about who we are and what we're building. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
It was so much fun. Thanks, Adriana. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, and see you in the next one. Thank you.